I am here with the fabulous Jake Hogan on Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. I guess no one warned me.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Hi, welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. We have a great show for you today. Maggie Baird is here. Maggie is an actor and a songwriter and a philanthropist. And for good or for bad, she's most famous for being the mother of Billie Eilish and Finneas. She has a very special relationship with her kids. They like her. They're musicians, they're big deals, and they still like her and they like their dad. And I think that's not always the case for people who become big in show business and whose parents were involved in their career. And of course, I have a musician son, incredibly talented musician son, Charlie Cogan. And so I want to find out as much as I can about the mistakes that you can make with trying to do too much for your kid and the mistakes you can make for doing too little and how you can best advise and how you can best leave them alone. These are all questions I'll be asking Maggie. But before we get to Maggie, I just want to encourage you all to subscribe to this show. If you like it, subscribe. Go to YouTube and say, I am a subscriber. What does it cost you? Nothing. It's free. And also you can like it on Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon. You can like it everywhere. Audible, like it. Like it. Subscribe there too. Subscribe everywhere. But the YouTube is apparently the one where people are really judging me. And I feel very ashamed. You can help me out by subscribing to the show and sending it to a friend. If you like it, send it to a friend. We'll get more subscribers that way too. Please write to me at dbawjk@gmail.com with all your questions, especially the viewer questions. I'm going to start giving out prizes to people who send me the questions. A special thing that you can then sell on eBay for $1 gazillion. All right. Well, thank you for being here. I'm excited about the show and I'm excited that you're here. So without any further ado, let's get to the great and wondrous and wise Maggie Baird.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Maggie Baird is here.
Hello.
And I've known you through the groundlings for many years. I'm going to say decades, maybe.
I think so.
And I knew you as a really funny performer and an actress, doing interesting things and writing things and all that kind of stuff. Then a few years ago, you had these two kids who became phenomenons in their own right. Like literally, Finneas and Billie Eilish are your children, and they're both separately and together superstars.
I know, it's so weird.
It's very weird. So that wasn't the identity I knew you by, is being the sort of, you know, having a superstar farm somewhere in East, somewhere in Los Feliz area. Highland Park area. Okay, so the show, Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan, is all about me solving my problems, because I'm a very selfish person, as you know. The question that you're here to answer, amongst many other things, is to what extent, it wasn't just one kid, it's two, to what extent is that a function of being raised the way they were, and to what extent is it just dumb luck, and to what extent is it just, you know, who they are? Like, where does that, how do you do the math on that?
I think it's some of each.
Yeah.
Did you ever read the book Outliers?
No.
It's worth reading.
Yeah.
But when I read the book Outliers, and actually I read it with Finneas at a book club. I used to lead these homeschool.
Is that Malcolm Gladwell?
Malcolm Gladwell,
right.
Yeah. And we homeschooled our kids,
right,
and for lots of reasons. But I used to lead book clubs for the kids, and you know, and for different ages. And we did this teen book club. We read Outliers. Finneas was probably like 12, I guess. And when I read the book, I just thought, oh gosh, am I screwing up as a parent? Mm-hmm. Because there's lots of things in the book.
And the answer is always yes.
Yes.
You're screwing up as a parent is 100% of the time, yes.
For sure. And I knew I was, so
right,
it just validated it. Mm-hmm. So in the book, talks about like all the contributing factors why outliers are outliers. Like people who are different in whatever, right?
Right. I mean, in addition to the 10,000 hours.
Well, that's important because, so what I got out of the book was, oh my gosh, what decisions have we already made about our lives that are going to affect our children, right? And, you know, I grew up in Colorado. I love to ski. We didn't have much money, but we bought a season pass every year. It was cheap then. And, but I could never afford to take my kids skiing. I think we scrounged out 2 trips to, Big Bear. Yeah. And I was like, my kids probably would have been really good skiers, but I didn't have that opportunity for them. And so I felt like, or I didn't live here. We didn't have money. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. So it's kind of focused on all the things we didn't have. Finneas read the book, and all he got out of the book was 10,000 hours.
Right.
And he wrote it over his door, and he set about to get it. And the amazing thing is, my kids they're really outliers, right? Because there's so many things you can point to about what happened with them. They grew up at a time when you could make music in your room. Right at the beginning of it, too. So it wasn't saturated. There wasn't so much of it. Right. They were homeschooled, which meant they had a lot of time, and the way we homeschooled, they could devote a lot of their attention to the things they liked doing. Yeah, they didn't grow up near a ski mountain, but they grew up in Los Angeles with a world-class symphony and a world-class, they got to be in the Los Angeles Children's Chorus with a scholarship, Right. And so I'm like, it was an outliers moment. Even the way their song got found on SoundCloud, it was like a moment in time when SoundCloud was relatively new. Right. They put it on SoundCloud for a dance teacher. Right. Literally just like, here's the link, that would be hard to have happen now, They also had this natural talent. I mean, that's the part you can't deny, right? They didn't have piano lessons. They didn't have any of those lessons, but they could learn, So it was their natural talent that happened to be at a place and time. Right.
But fostering natural talent is a thing that parents do, and you and your husband must have done that.
I think we didn't screw it up. Okay. I think you can also screw that up, Right. And I think we didn't screw it up. We addressed their interests, but we didn't overburden their interests, if you know what I mean.
So if somebody said, I want to play T-ball, I want to play baseball, then you'd let them play baseball, but you wouldn't coach? What's the difference?
No, I probably would coach if they needed a coach. Okay. It would be like, do they need a coach? Right. Do they need this? I would do that. I would haul the gear. But what I wouldn't do is here's a $500 mitt, and here's the finest cleats, and you're going immediately to a camp where you're going to stay for 8 weeks. I wouldn't do that. Right.
You'd wait to see there's passion there. Yeah. And then once the passion is there, you'd sort of support it.
And there was also kind of funny thing with Finneas where he was little. He was obsessed with music at age 3. Billy wasn't born yet. He wanted, for Christmas, all he wanted was a hi-hat cymbal for his drum kit and a conducting baton, right? And that's what he wanted.
That's awesome. You can double that for a Harry Potter wand. You could do both, right?
Well, he got those Harry Potter wands later.
Right.
Yeah, but we also were in the parenting philosophy. I don't know about your age parenting. I think similarly. Gosh, this could get deep into parenting.
Let's do it.
Is that okay?
This is my thing. My issue is that my personal need is, how do I support my son, who's also a musician, without fucking him up, without really putting too much pressure on, without getting too involved, without sapping his passion, but supporting him, trying to bolstering him when he needs it, but staying away when you don't. You're in a very unique position, which is why I've been trying to get you here for a while, of doing all that and seemingly keeping a very good relationship with your kids and them having leaned on you for a certain amount of stuff, but also you letting them fly. Yeah. So that's really
Charlie's
unique.
A grown-up, so it's a little different than little kids, but I was going to say when they were little kids, there was a parenting philosophy from a guy named Alfie Kohn, and it was kind of not using the phrase good job or good this, good job. And we subscribed to that. So we weren't good jobbing all the time, right? So it was a kind of if they climbed the ladder to the high slide instead of good job, it would be you climbed the ladder. Right. How do you feel up there? Right. So it was much more about your experience, not my experience. Right. So we weren't good job, you used the toilet. Good job, we just got the phrase out of our brains. Right. But what would happen was, so when he was drumming like crazy, I have an amazing story, which if we can cut out if it's too long.
No.
But Finneas went to a karate. He went to a birthday party and there was karate, and he loved it.
Right.
So he wanted to sign up for the karate class. So we went to the karate class, and gosh, he loved it. I could see he was just. And he was like a good student,
Right.
and he was just like doing everything the teacher, the sensei said, and he just was he loved it, right? They get to the end of the class, and the sensei, or whatever he was called at the time, says, ladies and gentlemen, great class. We have something we do in this class every week. We give a student of the week, and the student of the week gets to take home the headband. And my heart sunk, because I knew it was going to be Finneas.
Right.
No way it wasn't. He was a brand new student.
Right.
He killed it. He was amazing.
Super passionate.
I was like, oh, no. They're going to make Finneas Student of the Week.
Right.
I knew this was wrong for him.
Okay.
Because, of course, he got Student of the Week. What did he talk about all week? I was Student of the Week. I was Student of the Week.
Right.
Not the karate class. Not how much he loved it, but the fact that he was Student of the Week.
Right.
And so what happened the next week when we went back, was he going to be Student of the Week again? No way, right? Because they have to do the new kid and they have to spread it around.
Sure.
But he worked just as hard and he tried just as hard.
Right.
And afterward, he was like, why wasn't I Student of the Week?
Right.
And I could explain all the reasons.
But just how it felt.
And I was like, why, of all places, karate, which has its own reward system
Right.
of
Belts.
of belts,
Belts. Right.
would you add a random Student of the Week with a headband? I watched him. He lost interest in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And that's an example of like what we tried not to do, like not to make it about external rewards, but about
the world around us
wants to
honor external rewards. Brown and I tried as much as we can to honor his work.
Yeah.
Like, you work really hard.
Yeah.
Not like you get an A, but you work really hard. Wow.
Yeah.
That's great that you work that hard. And
Same.
really just talk about the effort.
Yeah.
And that, because we read that if you talk about the grades or the reward, then kids are going to start feeling afraid of not getting the grades and reward and not try.
Exactly.
Not try to fail.
Exactly.
And so I don't think we succeeded, because I think that there's natural inclination. Nobody wants to fail. But that was our attempt at doing that. But I don't know how good we did.
But there's a lot of external, like, because even when Finneas was like 3 years old and he was drumming, people would come over and then they would be like, oh, you're so good. Oh, you're this. And I was like, oh, don't say anything. Just let him do it,
But here's something that you can't learn really fast, that your kids have somehow learned, and that you have either helped or whatever. I don't know how it is, but they've survived a viper pit of show business. Really, truly. It's one thing to want to be. My son is in the position where he wants to make it in the music industry. He's not there. He's trying.
Yeah.
He's doing stuff. But once you reach a certain amount of success, there's so many pitfalls. That's really the scariest place. And both your children are there, and both your children are negotiating it. I'm sure there are problems and difficulties, but overall, it seems like they're coming through that in a really good way. How do you prepare them for that?
I don't think that's
that?
preparing. I think the really lucky part of this was that they were of an age, Billie especially, because the first thing the song came out that sort of, got people knocking on the right. She was 13 years old.
That's Ocean Eyes.
Yeah, she was 13.
Okay.
She was about to be 14. So she was so young that we parents had to be involved.
Right.
And Finneas was only 17, right? And so that was actually really lucky, because, and I've said this in print, I've said this many times, I don't really know how anybody starts out in this industry and without a parent.
Right.
Because you need an advocate. You need a person who is, listen, everybody, no matter how great everybody is around you in your team, everyone has an agenda. They do, and that's not a bad thing in life, but it is. And so who is the person whose agenda is you and your mental health and your physical health and your legacy, who you are as a human, who you'll be in the future? That's your parent. And so,
I mean, if you're lucky, you meet somebody in the business who also you think might have your back a little bit, but you're right.
For sure. I think those people exist.
Right.
They really do. But then you got to find that in addition to everything else. So I think it's lucky I think it was lucky that she was of an age that people were welcoming. And that doesn't always happen, especially with moms, to be honest. There's like a prejudice against moms,
Sure. Momager,
which I was not a manager,
Right.
but you're looking out for your child,
Sure. As somebody who's, produced shows with kid actors, one of the things you judge when you hire kid actors, are the parents crazy?
Yeah.
Honestly,
No, for
right,
sure.
And are they going to make trouble? And are they going to be difficult? And do they, what is the kid want to work, or is they being forced to work because the parents are making all those things sort of go into the mix. And so I can understand people sort of being a little bit suspicious or wary until they know what is the position of this mom to this child.
Yeah. Well, and the music industry is a little Wild West there's no unions, there's no work hour rules.
Right.
There's no, you know what I mean? There's crazy conflict of interest. some of the stuff that blew my mind in the beginning was that person is a manager and they're also a music supervisor and they're on a DJ and you're like, wait, is this not a conflict of interest?
Right.
But there's no rules about that in the industry.
Sure.
It's really kind of it is Wild West
Right.
And so in the acting one, it's a little more cut and dried, and you have these kind of guidelines and you have these social workers, etc.
I feel very lost when I we've had conversations, you and I personally, about the music industry and where it is, and I still to this day I would love to be able to be a great advisor, a consigliere to my son, and it's like I'm Fredo. I'm the consigliere who's Fredo. I don't have the ability. And Charlie's had good advice from people, including you. Thank you. By the way,
Charlie's really talented.
So grateful that you took time out to talk to him, and other people have taken time out to talk to him and help him and been encouraging of his music. And it means so much when it's not his parents saying, "You're really good." Because of course we're shills.
Well, but that's what people always say to me. Did you see this coming? Did you ever think did you know? I was like, absolutely not, because I'm an actor.
Right.
And as an actor, we know that talent does not always equate with success.
Not at all, of course.
And we're so we have no illusions about it's a straight shot. You just work hard and you just get, it's not, it's just not.
Right.
So I was as shocked as anybody.
Well, but interestingly enough, you and your husband are artists, right? And so there's a mindset of artists that kind of doesn't matter whether success exists or not. What matters is the art. And are we going to make art? And are we going to make art? Is that going to be our living, or is that just what we do? Is that all that stuff?
Yeah,
comes from an artistic household that may not come from a household where the parents are doctors and lawyers or other things. So they're lucky to have that as the mindset.
Well, we lived in a 2-bedroom house with 3 pianos. One piano that we got from Craigslist, because my husband always wanted a grand piano. He turned 50. He was like, I can't believe I've never been able to afford a grand piano.
Right.
We found a free one on Craigslist. Terrible piano. Like an albatross.
We have a terrible grand piano. We do. Because it was my mother's, my wife's grandmother's piano.
Yeah.
It's a family heirloom. And it's horrible.
Yeah, Patrick had to learn to tune it because the professional tuners wouldn't do it.
Right.
But then we also had my childhood piano in Finneas's bedroom. And then we had an electric piano in our little living room. So they grew up with 3 pianos.
Right.
And two parents who were professional actors, which, working class actors, but were also amateur musicians who loved music. I wrote songs, as an amateur songwriter. And Finneas, I said somebody who asked me a question recently. I said, I think people need to dream smaller. I think you need to make your dreams a little smaller so you're happier. Finneas once said recently, which I loved hearing, and I know it's true for him. He said his big dream was to be in a band that opened for a band at the Fonda. Right.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, I remember when one of our favorite bands was opening for a big band. And it wasn't even that big a venue, but I was like, oh, can you imagine how incredible that is?
Sure.
And I think that's important. If your dreams are a little bit more, if you want to make art, make art. If you want to perform, if you want to write songs and perform, there's a lot of opportunity for that.
The problem about dreams, amongst many things, is I think in the music industry is like, I don't think I would know what to dream. I wouldn't know what I want.
Fair.
What's the goal? Like, everything changes so much. Everything moves around. Success, I don't even know what it looks like exactly. I mean, I know for a rarefied air of a few people what it looks like. But for most everybody else, like, being able to make a living at it would be amazing.
Well, Charlie's a really good songwriter.
Yes.
And I think that making a living as a songwriter.
He would love to do that. I would because I think he'd prefer to do that rather than even sing.
Well, that I think is a somewhat, doable goal,
One of the things that is difficult is like, okay, well, how do you then promote the songs you've written without singing them and then getting them on social media? Someone has to pick up the gauntlet who has a connection to the people who might be buying or singing those songs to say, here it is.
Yeah.
And publishers can do that, but publishers are only interested in people who have made a certain amount of money so far, and also shouldn't give away your publishing.
Yeah,
and
it's a catch-22, isn't it? I do think, and again, like I don't want to be here as an expert, but I do think either being a writer and a producer, or working with a producer so that you're a team. Right. I think that is the key, because artists do work with producers, right? Now, in Billie and Finneas' case, it's the two of them, right? And that's perfect and ideal. But most artists, even if they write their own songs, they are going to work with a producer. Right. So if that producer produces and also happens to be a songwriter, now you've got a great combo, you come in with my ideas. So I think that is working for people more than just being a songwriter, in quotes.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie's produced for people and has been produced by people, so it's like been both areas. I mean, and I'm encouraging him. One of my biggest things is collaborate. Collaborate. The more you collaborate, the better you'll be. It's like an actor or improv. Like the more we play with other people, the more we get, the more we give. All that stuff helps. And a bigger community.
And meeting people is so important. It's so important, meeting people.
Here's another compliment you didn't ask for that has nothing to do with you, has more to do with your kids. What Was I Made For is an amazing song. And the second I heard it, I knew it was an amazing song. And the second I heard it and thought, they wrote this for a movie? was also mind-blowing, because the assignment of we need a song for this that fits in with our movie, but also fits in with some emotional zeitgeist that you're tapping into, and it also has to sound really good, and it also has to be catchy in some ways, and all that is impossible.
It is amazing.
And they did it.
They did.
Like, holy crap, they did it.
But you know what?
Yeah.
They will say this, that they've been kind of training in this way, because when they first started out, I don't want this to sound like me taking credit, because it's just, I taught a songwriting class when Finneas was 12. But I taught it because I thought I wanted him to learn it, right? And I'm an amateur, right? But I wrote a lot of music at the Groundlings, right? But watching Finneas was like watching a light bulb, right? Just like that. It was literally like, showed the song structure of, well, I Want to Hold Your Hand. And he went, okay, I get it. And then every week was like that. But some of the assignments were like, watch a TV show and listen to a phrase or something. But then they started doing this on their own, like, and they've talked about it a lot. They'd be like, let's write a Bond song today. Like, let's write a this. They found that fun, like they did it as like little experiments and assignments for
sometimes
themselves.
you need a little box.
Oh, it helps a lot.
To be creative.
Yeah.
And you sort of say, what's today's box? What is it we're going to do? And I'm always encouraging Charlie to write outside of his box a little bit and go like, God, what's the soul song that you would write that you would never, what if you had to write, if you were writing a Motown song today, what would that sound like? Or what would, and sometimes he likes it, sometimes it's exciting for him, and sometimes he just rolls his eyes. That's not for me. And he's always,
you're out of my lane, Dad.
And he's right always. But it's fascinating. Well, let's talk about your journey. So you came from Colorado.
Colorado, yeah.
What made you decide, okay, I'm going to be an actor and I'm going to come to LA and I'm going to take the big risk to do that?
I actually moved to New York. I lived in New York for 10 years.
Okay.
So I always wanted to be an actor, even since I was a little kid.
Did you move to New York because you thought Broadway is my place?
I was a theater actor.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I moved to New York and I, like Laugh-In, Edith Ann, that was all my favorite, Lily Tomlin. but I moved to New York. I went to college in Utah
Right.
to be an actor and a dancer.
Everybody does.
Yeah, Utah.
all the great actors go to Utah. Sure.
I didn't know how to go. I don't know how to become an actor.
Right.
I really didn't know, but I was also a dancer. I knew where to go to be a dancer
Right.
because they had a great dance department. So I went there. There was an amazing acting teacher there. I took the class as a non-major. I got taken into the acting department, changed my life. You know, that's what I wanted to do. But then I quit college, moved to New York, and I did regional theater, you know, which means you live in New York, but you audition for Cincinnati Playhouse or, you know, and I met my husband in Alaska Rep, you know, doing a play.
Right.
So yeah, we just did regional theater, off-Broadway plays, Broadway plays.
And did you survive doing mostly that, or did you have to have other jobs? Or
I did. I was lucky. I did a soap opera I did one soap opera for a little while. Then I did, you know, New York soap operas are kind of the actor's day job. You
they
know?
were.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a couple of soap operas that kind of got me through. We've always been working class actors, you know, like barely, you know, below the poverty level, technically,
Right.
you know.
Harder to do now. All my acting
Harder to
friends
do.
are all complaining because you used to be able to make a living by doing one or two or a couple parts a year and then
commercial
live on
and a bunch-
residuals and other kind of stuff, and all that stuff has gone away.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were never well off. But again, like what you said earlier, I think if your goal is to make art and you don't have a goal of being, you know, you're happy making.
Well, I mean, your goal is hopefully your art
you make a
hits
living.
the right spot and people love it, but you're still going to make it.
Creativity, control, those are your big goals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we, you know, lived in New York and my mom died suddenly. I was very low and depressed, and I did a national tour of the Heidi Chronicles and came to LA, and I was like, I'm gonna move to LA. So moved to LA, and you know, we both did. And I honestly went to see a friend in the McNally Skull at the Groundlings, and I was like, this looks like the most fun thing. This looks like what I've wanted to do my whole life and didn't know it.
Right.
You know, because back to the Lily Tomlin, you know. So just took a class at the Groundlings for fun.
Right. So who was your group? Who was the people that you came up with at the Groundlings?
Will and I went through kind of the exact same trajectory of time getting into the company.
Okay. That's Will Ferrell, not Will Forte.
Will Ferrell.
Yes,
But I
okay.
knew Will Forte too. But he was like one group behind.
Right.
Chris Kattan, Amy Smallman
Amy
in the
Smallman,
Sunday
Winston,
Company.
right?
Amy Smallman Winston in the
Right.
Sunday Company with Matt. I don't think it was in their company with Matt though, but just
Thank
time
God.
wise.
Oh my God. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
Matt's the funniest person.
He is very funny. I'm playing a poker game with him tonight.
I know, he told me.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my group. You know, Coolidge and
Right.
very funny. Mary Jo Smith, Roy Jenkins.
Yeah.
Yeah, very funny people. I wrote with Roy and Will all the time.
Oh man. They're so funny.
The Groundlings was the most fun, and also it made me a much better actor. When people would say, like, what do you recommend as an actor? I say go to the Groundlings, because I remember I did an episode of the X-Files, and at the audition, I had to speak in tongues and have a seizure.
Right.
Right? Because I was a psychic, and it was the X-Files.
Sure.
You know, being an actor, going into a 4x6 room with a bunch of producers, speaking in tongues and having a seizure.
Right.
I don't think I could have done that before the Groundlings. You know what I mean? Like the audition. And maybe I could have, but the liberation
You
of
would have gone through a whole bunch of very difficult exercises to get there as a serious actor. And as a Groundlings, I think, well, do
Just
it.
go
You
for
just
it.
go
Yeah.
for it. It's a whole different thing. But I would say that the Groundlings has hurt people's acting. Like if people
Tell
who
me.
start at the Groundlings
Yeah.
learn character and comedy and all that, but they don't learn that the seriousness, the moment of like, ignore
when
the
you shut it
camera,
off.
be real in this moment right now,
Yeah.
that's a different skill.
It is a different skill. For me, it was a perfect order.
Right.
And maybe that's true. And there's certainly, you know, some forms of sketch comedy where they kind of reward the smirk. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
They reward we're joking here.
But people-
that wasn't me.
People have to learn the other kind of acting. Once they get into movies, all these groundlings and Saturday Night Live actors have to learn, the thing we were doing is not the thing that we should be doing now.
No.
And many of them who are really good at it become really good serious actors.
I think the best do both like
You said do.
Do.
You said do. I'm just pointing it out.
Do both. I wasn't sure if I said do or do, which are both
No, I'm not
weird.
sure. Either way, you should be ashamed for it.
But there is the magic when we could sit here and name some of the greatest serious actors who are also the funniest people on earth.
Oh, for sure.
It
Meryl
is the
Streep,
magic.
Let's just start there.
Yeah, she's
fantastic.
so funny.
Really funny.
Yeah, and then on the other hand, like Jim Carrey, the other side, coming
great.
from, a great serious actor, Bill Murray,
Right. What's the biggest mistake that your kids have avoided that you maybe either helped them with or just dumb luck?
Gosh, I don't know that I have an answer for that.
All right. This interview's over. Fuck this. Didn't I ask her? I asked her a question. She didn't have an answer. No.
I don't know that they've avoided. I guess like being too influenced by other people, Well,
what do you worry about for them right now? Every parent worries.
Well, we always worry about their safety and, the lack of privacy you have, the things you give up for this. But happiness, I worry that they, find, that they, it's an intense world to be in front of.
How do you preserve the part of you that you want to keep for yourself? How do you find relationships that aren't tainted by,
I think you just don't buy into the physical trappings, for one thing. You know what I mean? Like the minute you start overspending, overhiring, living outside of your means or living very high in your means, now you have to keep something up, and you have to keep an image up, and you have to take jobs that you might not want to take. That is a huge pitfall. And I think what we have as a family is we all live here. We live in our same small house. We have family dinners all the time.
But you have painted it with actual gold. So just plastered it with gold. But still, it's a beautiful house. But the gold and diamonds are different now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny and so not true, but it's not funny.
Staying grounded is great, but I think it's really hard. Like, I don't know that it's so easy to, perform at the Forum for 5 nights and have, 30,000 people cheering for you every night, and then go back home and like order chicken.
We're vegan, so
or pick up something, fried vegetables or something like that, and just take it home and just sit in front of the TV with no it
is weird, but it's more like a dopamine weird thing.
Right.
It's hard for your dopamine in your brain to be like high, and then maybe not have anything technically on the schedule.
You said you're vegan. This is true. Let's talk a little bit about Support and Feed.
Let's do.
So you have this group that you support, but I think it's your group.
I founded it.
You founded your group. Gives people a nonprofit, vegan.
Yes,
right,
well,
vegan, but it's feeding people who need to be fed.
We are a nonprofit that is addressing food equity and the climate crisis. And the way we do that is we provide nourishing, delicious, plant-based meals because we know that those are better for the climate and better for health to community organizations where people are affected by food insecurity. And food equity, meaning that many organizations or communities are in areas where they lack access to nourishing food.
Right.
So we do this to address that. We also provide education, information, cooking classes, produce, recipes, all kinds of things to support that.
So what made you found this group? Obviously there's need everywhere. You see the need.
Yeah.
But I see the need and I didn't find it. I didn't make a group. So what encouraged you to do it?
Well, one of the things I've done my whole life is I cook. I love to cook. I love to feed people, and I really care about the environment.
Right.
And I'm really the same person I've always been. Like, people are like, oh wow. I'm like, I've been saying the same things, but nobody ever listened to me really until my kids got famous.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. They kind of gave me a platform to talk about the things I really care about.
Yeah.
And so I've been working with my daughter, Billie and Finneas, and their teams to try to make the music industry more sustainable. And then when the pandemic hit, we came home from a tour, and I thought, oh my God, people are going to need food. We need to feed people, but of course we'll make the food plant-based food. We'll support the local businesses that are going under. And then we stepped into the world of food insecurity, and our eyes were blown open, and I'm shamefully unaware of the depth of food insecurity and the depth of food inequity in our society. And so we realized that nobody was really doing it, because forming a nonprofit is really hard, and generally you shouldn't do it. You should volunteer for another nonprofit. Okay. But nobody was really doing what we were doing, which was saying, why are we siloing these? Why are we siloing feeding people, climate change, economy, health, when we're feeding? So many organizations are feeding tremendous amount of food. Why don't we make that food plant-based, delicious, from a local business, healthier, provide information? So that's why we became a nonprofit. And we were in 4 cities, and then that first year we're in 11 cities in the US now. We work with organizations in Europe and Australia. And
where does Support and Feed mostly get their funding from?
Donations, just donations from private donations, small donations.
So if somebody would want to give to Support and Feed, now make it very clear, I would never give to this organization. But if somebody else or our listeners would want to give to Support and Feed, how would they do it?
Supportandfeed.org, and then just, make a donation. And, right now we're feeding so many people from the LA fires. We've increased 450% what we feed in LA. We have 2 pop-ups every week in Altadena feeding. In this case, we're actually feeding directly. Usually we're feeding through, and we're taking our food to Friends Indeed, to Boys and Girls Club, to Sisters of Watts. These are the LA ones, but they're all over the country. Right. But in this case, we're feeding directly to the people impacted by the fires, Do
you ever, there's more need than food that you have. So how do you sort of figure out, here's how we're going to dole it out?
That's a great question. It's complicated, because we don't come and go. We stay. So we work with organizations, figure out, what do you need? What do you want for your community? What are you lacking? What food do you want? Would you like education also? We really don't come in and tell people what to do. We say, what do you need? And then we make we want to have the ability to commit to that, so that we're not just like, here's some food, we go, but like, we're here every week. We're here now, we're adding this for you. And so that takes a real budget and real in all our different cities.
What do you do when you're serving people Brussels sprouts? They hate it. Everybody hates it.
No, everybody loves Brussels sprouts now.
They like them fried.
Brussels sprouts got changed.
Brussels sprouts are hip now?
Yeah. You're behind. They've been the
I've had Brussels sprouts at fancy LA restaurants, and they fry it up and they put it all kinds of crispy thing, but they make it taste exactly like not Brussels sprouts.
Well, Brussels sprouts got changed. Somebody bred Brussels sprouts to only have the good parts and not the bad parts. So Brussels sprouts actually taste much better now.
Okay, thank God.
Cabbage is the new king. Like, cabbage is now getting its day.
Really?
Yeah, I'm so into cabbage, but lately I've been like, people are catching up to cabbage.
This is the Irish heritage speaking.
I'm Scott.
Well, they have cabbage too.
I'm Scottish and Irish, yeah.
All right. I have a question about...
I don't think we answered your question about what you should do to support Charlie.
Yeah, okay. What should I do? What should Charlie do for his career, and what should I do for Charlie? Like, honestly, some people say, well, leave him the fuck alone and let him just do what he's got to do, and he'll find his way, which is fine and good, and I think that's really valuable. A lot of what I do is
leave him alone.
But if there's anything I could do to sort of encourage him or let him fly, great, I'll try to do it. And if that's doing nothing, I can do that too.
Gosh, it's a good one, because in general, it's like general parenting, but also music industry, right? And general parenting, you just let them do what they do, and you're there, and you still do that sort of, I think that, the potted plant thing where I'm just going to be around. Right. Can I just come over and hang out while you do blank? Right. So that I'm here. So if the conversation comes up, I also think the memory keeper thing is important, where you're like the memory keeper of the well, I remember the person who did this amazing thing. And like, in other words, you can do it because I've seen you do it. The kind of pointing out the successes and how they overcame. Right. And I think that is valuable to them to kind of go I see this about you. Right. Finneas always said the most important thing to him was just time and attention, So I think you're doing all that. And I think as far as the music.
But I also think, like, music-wise, there are so many different things to research and avenues. Like, I don't think one person can do it. He's doing what he needs to do. He's doing the social media thing. He's doing the writing, songwriting. He's still, catering to the art, but now sort of being willing to sort of acknowledge it is a business that he also has to play that game.
Yeah. Somebody said this to me when Finneas was really young and he had a band, and it was actually before the Billie thing happened. So I was kind of doing what you were doing, like, well, how do I help and how do I stay out of the way? And he was saying for Finneas, he said, first of all, tell him to just really practice his skills, because when things take off, sometimes you don't have time. Right. And then for me, it was kind of like, learn a little bit about the industry so that if suddenly you're faced with blank, which I did not do, by the way.
Right. I mean,
I just
how
didn't
much
have
can you
time
do?
at that age to kind of whatever. But I think in your case, kind of learning about it so that if he finds himself like, being offered something here or there, you have some sense of like, what would be a standard here or someone to call. I mean, you have people to call, which is lucky.
It is lucky, but I mean, the wheelhouse is not music. My wheelhouse is, movies and TV.
Yeah.
And I have some people to call in there, but and I've dealt with music people in general, but it's like, I don't know.
But I've heard Charlie's music now for a while. It's, you know what I mean? Like it's really good.
You're preaching to the choir. I am aware that his stuff is great, and I will always love his stuff. But again, my opinion doesn't count because I'm the dad. But yes, who
did I tell you he reminded me of?
He gets Burt Bacharach. He gets Billy Joel. He gets James Taylor. He gets
it was Stephen Bishop.
Stephen Bishop.
He reminded me of Stephen Bishop.
Interestingly enough, Stephen Bishop's wife was on our show not long ago. She's a music manager named Liz, and I got to talk to Stephen Bishop a little bit. About
he reminded me of Stephen Bishop.
I love Stephen Bishop.
Same.
On and On is a great song. It's a beautiful song. All right, well, now it's time for viewer mail.
Now it's time for listener mail.
This is from Angela, and Angela says, I live in such a busy world. How do I make time for me? And is it important for me to make time for me? And where do you draw the line where you say enough is enough?
I like to be doing things I enjoy, and sometimes even that can be too much.
Right.
And I start to feel just overwhelmed in my brain. And then I have to make time for me, but I'm not like on the pampery world. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not like,
you don't want to go to a spa day.
no,
Right.
I don't want to go
so
to a spa day.
what's your day of relaxation then? What do you do?
Try to have no scheduled meetings, no scheduled calls, and literally like I watched White Lotus last night. That was great. Like have watch a movie, turn my phone off, rest, sleep more.
Sleep.
Really so flip and basic. You know what I mean?
Right,
I'm so
right,
basic, but
right.
yeah, get in nature, of course, would be amazing.
Right. But I guess Angela's saying like the world demands your time.
Yeah.
When do you say I need to, even though this is still waiting, support and feed is still waiting, still calling. There's real need out there.
Yeah.
But without taking care of yourself, you can't take care of them. So where do you draw that line?
I push it a little too far.
Uh-huh.
I push it until I'm like, oh my God, I'm really tired.
Right.
I really don't have another choice.
Okay.
And then you know what I find? And this happened to me this weekend because I had such a busy last 2 weeks that I was like, I'm just going to take a little nap. And then I took that little nap and it was like, I was like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Like I hadn't even let myself realize that the minute you tell your body, we're going to rest for a second, it's like, finally, So I think it is a good quality for people to work in special rest periods or whatever rejuvenates. I'm just not great at it.
I let my body collapse. Like sometimes I'll just really just get sick and then I'll be forced to stop.
Yeah, that's a famous thing to have happen.
And like always if you're working on a show, you're on hiatus, you immediately get sick.
So for sure. Or in school, you got to I do have the famous Oura ring.
Okay. Does it work for you?
It just reminds me about my sleep because I'm like, someone's someone's watching my numbers. Like I'm like, oh shoot, it
I
was
have
only.
the Fitbit watch, and it also tracks my sleep.
Yeah.
But what it tracks is horrible sleep. It's like night after night of horrible sleep.
Well, I work harder at it because of it. I'm
Yeah.
like, it just reminds me. I'm like, oh wow, I thought I got more sleep than that last
Right.
night.
All right. Well, now it's time for a moment of joy.
A moment of joy.
This is where you tell us something that gives you joy, that's not about your family and not about your work, but just something that just resonates with you that maybe we could all share, we could all do.
I thought about this because, of course, I did immediately go to family
Right.
and my little picture frame in my
Right.
kitchen that's pictures of them as little kids. Mine are so small. My matcha every day. I have matcha every day.
One,
Generally, it's pretty big.
Okay.
It lasts for a long time.
Right.
I make it with almond and soy milk. I make it myself usually. And I do kind of have a feeling each day like, oh, I finished my matcha. What's left? What's left of life,
Right.
you know? I know people feel that way about coffee, but
Sure.
I feel that way about matcha. I also like, I love to swim. I love organizing a drawer. It is one of the,
really?
yeah. I'm not
Okay.
a neat, crazy person, but there's nothing like
Oh, my wife does the same thing. She
Organizing a
loves to organize and reorganize. How often do you reorganize the drawer you organize?
not very often.
Okay.
No, I'm a like it's once in a very long time.
Okay.
But you know when you organize something and then that feeling like you just keep going in to look at it all
Right.
night. You like pull the drawer and you're like, oh my God, that looks so
It's
good.
a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, and it's
Yes.
like organizing your brain
Right.
and where you can see it. I think that is nothing. I used to say this when I was in the Groundlings and you had to write something. I would always go play the guitar. Like
Right.
nothing made me play the guitar more than I was supposed to be writing.
Right.
And nothing makes me want to organize a drawer more than I'm supposed to be doing some.
Right. So
boring
it's a procrastination tool.
Yeah.
But the
But it
thing,
feels really
it
good.
does because it's a task that you can finish. So it's good to finish something. I'm an errand guy. But Brown, my wife will say, like, I'll always ask her, do you need me to do anything? Because I will go on any errand, anything, because it's a task and I can finish it and feel good about that thing. Whereas every other thing I do, scripts, takes months and years and whatever, it takes forever to do. So I like little tasks.
I think my husband is the same, and I'm going to talk to him about this, but he's fairly generous of like, I've got a prescription at CVS. He'll go, I'll go get it. And I'm always like, it's kind of funny that he'll do that because he doesn't want to do other things.
Right.
Maybe
It
he's
feels
an errand
good.
guy.
It feels good.
Yeah.
It feels I'm of service.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing something for somebody in my family or somebody I love, and I get out, see something new, finish it, and come back. It's like I did that.
You should volunteer for Support and Feed. You can go pick up some food, take it to a nice community org.
Happy
check
to.
it off. Okay.
Happy to.
Put you
I would
down.
love to put me down.
Yeah.
I would happy to. I've written checks, but that's nothing. Being a person, being a person who actually does stuff, that's helpful. I would love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's rewarding.
Okay, so Maggie, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You're great, and I really loved spending time with you, and I really appreciate. You were so kind and welcoming, not just to come on the show, but also to field my many panicky phone calls that I've had over the years about having a musician child and what the hell to do with them. And you've been very helpful, and helpful to talk to Charlie too has been really amazing. And so I appreciate it.
I wish him luck.
Thank you.
I wish anyone listening who's a musician luck because I feel you. I love to make music too, and I admire you. So just
Right.
keep doing it.
We're going to need luck. We're going to need luck. But you don't need luck to just make the music.
No,
Making
you don't.
music
That's
is within
just
you.
finding
Yes.
a time and just doing it, and that's rewarding.
So that was great. Thank you for that. And thank you for listening to our show. And thank you for subscribing to Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. And thank you for writing in to dbawjk@gmail.com with all your questions. And don't be alone. Go have fun with somebody. Go see a friend. Talk to somebody. Don't be lonely. This lonely business is stupid. Spend some time with a friend either today or tomorrow. And I will see you next time.